Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel, Professor R.J. Placone on Communication Excellence. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about Donald Trump and the Awestruck Effect. Now, when I highlight Donald Trump, I'm not doing it in any kind of partisan way. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to learn. And I think he gives us ample opportunity to learn about communications. And I'm going to do a few videos highlighting a few of these areas. One has to do with the awestruck effect. So let me talk to you a bit about what that is in communication theory. The awestruck effect suggests that there are some people that we find so charismatic, we admire so much, that we sometimes don't respond in the same emotional ways that we might respond to someone else who we don't hold in that high of esteem. And as a result, that we kind of stifle some of our emotional reaction to these individuals, we also tend to put some of our critical thinking on hold. We're not as critical as how we view the information they share as we would be if someone that we hold in lesser regard was sharing that information with us. Let me get a little more specific. So I think with Donald Trump, especially, let's look at two areas. One is just statistics, whether it be approval ratings, employment numbers, size of crowds. Donald Trump is often at odds with what is reported, and he will just give his own version of the numbers. DC may have a falling crime rate, could be even at a 30-year low, and he's going to say it's going through the roof. And he's relatively unchecked on that. And we've seen that with the polling numbers and a host of things. Even in terms of how he views democracy and our elections. You know, just in the last couple of days, he has suggested that he spoke with Putin about fair elections. And Putin doesn't think that mail-in voting is really consistent with holding free and fair elections. Nothing like the take from a Russian dictator on free elections. But nonetheless, Trump, I believe, by a large portion of the base, certainly not everyone, goes relatively unchecked. And Trump has challenged scholars in many ways to understand his leadership, his communication success, his election success, because he may violate any and all of the norms. And in fact, we could argue that he does. The rule of likability. For so long, that was the number one determinant of who folks would vote for. Do they like that individual? Yes, yet Trump got many votes from people who do not like him. And they would say it. I had many conversations where folks said, I don't like Donald Trump, but I'm voting for him. That's different from what we've seen in the past. So we've been trying to explain and understand the phenomenon that is Donald Trump. And I think this awestruck effect is one of the ways that we can understand it. That we don't seem to apply the same test of logic. We may give him a pass and say, oh, that's Trump being Trump. We would not have necessarily responded that way had it been a politician that we didn't hold in as high of regard, and we wouldn't be suffering from a bit of the awestruck effect. I'm not saying in any way that everyone that supports and gives leniency to Trump is suffering from the awestruck effect, but I think there's something there that should give us pause. And if you are one of the folks that just regularly supports Trump's narrative around statistics, narrative around elections, I would just ask, you to think about, would I be responding this same way if Joe Biden said these things? If Barack Obama said these things? And if you would say no to that, I would not respond the same way, I think it's a fair question to then say, am I suffering a bit of the Awestruck effect? And should I resurrect my critical thinking and my emotional responses, including one of anger at times, that I seem to have put on hold when Trump is sharing his information? I think it's definitely worth the time. I appreciate your time in watching this video, and I'm going to have a few more similar to it in the next week or so. Thank you so much. Have a great day.